All right, guys, so we got to talk about this extremely disturbing story that at the very least is a blatant example of anti-straight propaganda being pushed in schools, and at the very worst is a blatant example of what a lot of people are calling grooming being done in schools. As there's a story out of Missoula, Montana, that involves a high school freshman health class that passed out a worksheet that has all types of questions on the worksheet that are framed from an anti-straight perspective that was given to the students to take home. And parents have been outraged about this. Now, I believe that Brandon Tatum actually did a video about this. Now, he says that a parent actually sent him a copy of this worksheet, and then I literally just stumbled across a news clip of the local news covering this incident. So it's one of those things that is kind of a big deal, right? Parents are so outraged that they're trying to get the news out here everywhere, right? For everybody to see. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and play the news clip of them covering this incident so that you guys get a better understanding of what's going on. And then I'm going to chime in from there. Take a look.
And at 6, parents asked us to get to the bottom of a questionnaire handed out to students by a teacher. We're told it happened in a health class at Sentinel High School and asked questions regarding student sexual orientation. But while the school district explains the flyer is meant to teach inclusivity, not all parents are sold on that. NBC Montana's Connor McCauley started working for you to get answers.
According to a parent with a student at Sentinel High School, their freshman came home feeling uncomfortable regarding this questionnaire that was handed out at the end of their health class. Now, it poses questions regarding students' thoughts and feelings towards heterosexuality and asks questions such as this. 99% of reported rapists are heterosexual. Why are straight so sexually aggressive? The majority of child molesters are heterosexuals. Do you consider it safe to expose children to heterosexual teachers, scout leaders, and coaches? And when did you choose your sexual orientation? On the questionnaire, there are 15 questions for students. One Missoula resident spoke out at Tuesday's MCPS board meeting, asking how can we present these kind of topics to 14-year-olds?
Who assumes the dominant role and who assumes the passive role in a straight relationship? The fact that that is being talked about to 14 and 15-year-olds just absolutely blows my mind.
The parent who we spoke with wishes to stay anonymous, but she says that her student came home feeling uncomfortable and questioning if they were a bad person because they were heterosexual. The parent also told us it wasn't just the questionnaire that was upsetting, but the context and timing. She says that it was handed out at the end of class with no discussion. She says she waited a day to inform MCPS about the questionnaire to give the teacher an opportunity to explain it in class, but that never happened. MCPS officials say this questionnaire was not a part of approved curriculum and remedial actions have been taken to prevent something like this from happening again. In Missoula, Connor McCauley, NBC Montana.
We've got Missoula school statement online. In it, the district says the flyer was intended to show how certain questions can be offensive. Students were not expected to answer and that the questionnaire has been removed. You can read the entire statement at NBCMontana.com.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear and obvious what's going on there. That teacher has an agenda, right? That teacher had an agenda, and they decided that they were going to force their agenda on their kids in school. Okay, then that's why they didn't want to have an overt conversation about it in class. Let me just hand out this worksheet to get the kids thinking, right? To get the kids thinking about it. Okay, that's what happens, right? And this type of stuff that Democrats say, oh, it's not happening in school. It's not happening. Okay, just like they said that, oh, well, you know, anti-white propaganda isn't being taught in school either. But again, you have these parents that are basically coming out here and saying, look, my kid is coming home and telling me that they feel bad about being white because that's what they learn in school, right? That white people are evil, okay? And that they can never be forgiven for the sin of slavery, even though most white people today had nothing to do with that. Same thing going on here, right? With heterosexuality, where that parent said, look, my kid came home and felt bad about being heterosexual, right? Like what? Again, that's the agenda. The agenda is to make what they feel to be the dominant group in society feel bad, right? Feel bad about it. That's what it is. It's very clear and obvious what's going on here. And if you happen to get some of these kids to rethink their sexuality or their gender and then to subsequently change it, then that's bonus points, right? That's ultimately what the goal would be. And there's no doubt in my mind that the teacher that gave these kids this worksheet probably is one of these woke teachers with this agenda, because I'm convinced that what is happening is that you have a lot of these teachers in these schools doing this because they identify with LGBTQ or whatever, and they don't want to feel like they're part of the minority anymore, right? They want to be as normalized as possible. And the way to do that is to push it on young people who are susceptible to this stuff. That way they start to identify with it. And if they start to identify with it, now it becomes more normalized, especially in the future as they grow older and become adults. I think that is what the goal actually really is. It is to try to normalize this stuff as much as possible by demonizing what we consider today to be normal. So if you actually read this worksheet here, we're going to go over all these questions because, again, some of these questions are highly disturbing. I think it's clear what's going on here. So let's actually read. Define heterosexuality. How can you tell if someone is heterosexual, straight? What causes heterosexuality? Guys, is it just me or are they trying to make heterosexuality, being straight, sound like a disease or something? Like, what? Is it possible that heterosexuality stems from a neurotic fear of others of the same gender? The media seems to portray straights as preoccupied with sexual intercourse. Do you think so? Do you think straights flaunt their sexuality? If so, why? Who assumes the dominant role and assumes the passive role in a straight relationship? 40% of married couples get divorced. Why is it so difficult for straights to stay in long-term relationships? What? Straights can't stay in long-term relationships? I think the problem of, being able to stay in long-term relationships is not just a straight issue, right? I think that applies to non-straight people as well. I think that's just a general thing with people in relationships, okay? Has probably more to do with their chemistry, what their interests are, their backgrounds, how they get along, all types of other stuff. Not shit necessarily sure if it has anything to do with their sexuality per se. But let's carry on. Considering the consequences of overpopulation, could the human race survive if everyone were heterosexual? 99% of reported rapists are heterosexual. Why are straights so sexually aggressive? The majority of child molesters are heterosexuals. Do you consider it safe to expose children to heterosexual teachers, scout leaders, and coaches? Bro, what? Bruh, I don't get it. Actually, I do get it. What is happening here is that they're trying to reframe the conversation, right? They're trying to take what they think that straight people say about homosexuals and basically say the same thing about heterosexuals, right? They're trying to make a point. That's what's going on here. That is clearly what's going on here. Okay, they're trying to make straight people feel bad about being straight. That's why they're asking these type of questions. I feel like if I was a 14-year-old and I saw this, I definitely feel bad about being straight if I read something like this. I would feel so bad. I'm like, what? The human race can't possibly survive because of my heterosexuality, right? Not to mention the other controversial questions that they have up here as well, too. Are you offended when a straight person of the other gender comes onto you? When did you choose your sexual orientation? How easy would it be for you if you wanted to change your sexual orientation starting right now? What have been your reactions to answering these questions? What feelings have you experienced and why? Again, I got questions, man. If you did not intend to actually go over this worksheet, what was the point of handing it out, right? What was the point of handing it out? Well, again, the point was that this teacher knew that they could not get away with actually talking about this in class, but they wanted to push the agenda on these kids. So therefore, they were going to do it in a way that was more passive. Let me hand out this worksheet, not say anything about it, and let's hope and pray that the students are now become anti-straight, right? That open their mind up to the agenda. Okay, I think that's what's happening here. But this is also a reason why I am so skeptical about these so-called health and sex ed classes being taught in school. And the reason why is because they become so extreme, right? I mean, there was a story out of Minnesota, okay, in which the public schools there were asking students to role play as gay or trans, okay, doing class, role play, okay. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too far. Right? Because I used to be open-minded to it in the sense that, well, I can see the argument for why you would want, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, preferably kids that are, juniors, seniors in high school or whatever. You want them to know about, safe sex, right? Because a lot of these kids are going to do it And if you're going to do it, you know, you want to know how to do it safely, right? But I think it's at the point now where you can't trust any of these teachers or these schools really to administer this education in a way that's not going to go off the rails like this, okay? And so with that being said, I think that that really should be the job of the parents, right? It honestly should be the job of the parents in the first place. I don't think public schools should be teaching this stuff. That's something that parents should have a conversation with their kids about, okay? To be quite honest with you. Just to be 100% honest with you. And again, this is an example why, right? Because they take it to these extremes, you know, where they're bashing heterosexuals. This is anti-straight propaganda. That's what it is. Anti-straight propaganda. Because a lot of these teachers have agendas, right? So with that being said, again, this is some disturbing stuff that once again the left says doesn't exist, right? This is not happening. People on the right are simply just making this stuff up. They're just making it up. But hey, I mean, it is clearly happening. And yeah, that's something that must be done about it, which again is why Florida, in my opinion, is doing God's work with their parental rights and education bill because of situations just like this. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.